For those of you out there that are looking to see if there's a better solution for drawing, especially custom artwork, I wanted to show you the system that I use. I use a Wacom Mobile Studio Pro 16 and CorelDRAW Graphics Suite 2018, then with my add-on MemorialDESIGNER. So that's the system that I use, and to kind of demonstrate how it works, I thought I'd show you this custom drawing that I've got to do here. So the customer has emailed me a picture that's going to go right up here on the stone. They want a picture of their elk. So I've already got the email selected in Outlook. You can see right there. So all I need to do is click on my Import Attachments from Outlook button, and what that does is it will go and grab any attachments to that email and automatically bring it in for me. So then I can see which one of these I like and which one I want to draw off of. I don't really like either of these ones, so I'll just get rid of those. And this one I do like, so I'll start working with it. So if I bring that over the top of my rock, you'll see that I can size it how I want. If I needed to, I could crop this down a little bit. Not that it's all that necessary. I could also apply some transparency to it. That way I can see the rock behind it. And that way what I can do is I can size this to where I'd want it to be, basically on the stone first. So this is all going to be life size. It'll end up being 8 inches wide by 9 inches tall if I did it this size, but I'll just shrink it down a little bit more here. Okay, so let's say that that's the size that I wanted to draw it at. So what I can do is I can invert my selection, and that way I select everything but what I've got there, and I'll just come up to here and say hide. That way I get rid of everything except for what I want to focus on. So I will come on in here and zoom into that, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm using my mouse for a lot of this stuff, and then when it comes time to drawing, I'll switch over to my pen. Oftentimes I've actually got my pen in my hand at the same time that I'm using my mouse, so that I can switch back and forth between the two super easy. So that's what I'll go ahead and do here. So I've got this image, and then I'll just start drawing over the top of it. First I'll set how thick I want my stroke to be, and then I can start drawing from there. The keyboard, I don't use the keyboard a ton when I'm drawing, but I do use it a little bit. And then I also find that the screen itself, this is at a fairly steep angle, so I'll usually pop this down to a smaller angle here. That way it's going to lay down a little bit more flat on the table. This stand has 3 different angles that you can do. So I'll just show you how that works with the 3 different angles. My keyboard is kind of getting in my way of where I have my camera, so I'll see if I can just move that over a little bit. The Wacom Mobile Studio Pro is also a touch screen, so if I wanted to, I could just draw with my finger, not that I would ever really want to. You can also do things like zooming in and out, panning left to right, that sort of stuff with your hands. So I like to do that as well while I'm drawing. But anyway, so what we'll do is I'll come in here and I'll zoom in a little bit to where I want to be, and then I'll start drawing. The Wacom Mobile Studio Pro is pressure sensitive. This pen is called the Pro Pen 2, so it's actually got 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, which means that the harder I push, the thicker my stroke is going to be. The thinner, so right here, if I'm at the tip, I'll just lightly push, and then when I get further down, I'll push a little bit harder, so that way my stroke gets thicker or thinner depending on what I'm doing. At the thickest, whenever I'm pushing the hardest, that's when I get my desired line width, so the 0.105. I find that on this particular pen and setup, I don't quite get to full pressure ever, and so that's why I do a little bit larger than what I'm really shooting for. I like to do my strokes at about 0.09 inches, but so doing it this way gets me to where I would want it to be, pretty much. One of the neat things about drawing this way, this is called using artistic media, and the neat thing about it is that the stroke is set for that specific thickness, but I could make it, if I wanted to, I could make it stay that thickness even if I draw, or even if I shrink the design down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Oops. So I really like doing custom drawings for people. I think it's neat that they get to put their own, obviously this was his elk. This is something that he was pretty proud of hanging on his wall. So it's neat that he's going to be able to have this on his stone. It's not just some elk that I already had in my clip art. This is actually his elk. There are different ways you can do artistic media. So this particular way that I'm doing it lets you choose whether you want to do thicker or thinner strokes as you draw. So it's accounting for pressure sensitivity, but you can also do preset strokes. So instead, what I could do is a stroke like this that's going to start at a thick and then go to an angle like that. So if I wanted to, do hair or something, I could go about it more like this. But most of the time I'm just going to draw with pressure sensitivity, just because I like to be able to control it that way. Now all of these lines are actually just overlapping lines. If I were to go to the wireframe, you'll see what it looks like. It's kind of crazy. Each of them has an interior line and then the outline applied to it. So right now it looks kind of just like a bunch of gibberish, and fairly complicated, but we don't have to worry about that too much, because once we're done drawing we can weld all these strokes together, and that way it's going to clean it up just fine. If we run into an area like this, so this white line there might be too thin, so I can switch over to my shape tool, and because this is just an inside line with an outline applied to it, you can actually move this around and widen these pieces out, in case you see something there that's going to end up being too thin, that it might blow out or something when you're sandblasting. Okay, so might be a little bit more that we can do here. Oops. We'll go ahead and hide this now, just to see what it looks like there. That'll let us know what our elk is going to look like and whether or not we want to make any changes. So I think it's looking pretty good. I like to fill in most of my designs, and if there's gaps like this, then you're not going to be able to fill that in. So most of the time I'd go ahead and come in here and close this in just to make sure that it's going to be filled. That way later on, on this one it doesn't really matter all that much because I'm not going to be doing any sort of fills for granite fills or anything like that. But if I were to use this design later, I'd want to be able to do that, and so I like to have that option available to me. Okay. So this really took a little bit longer to draw than it normally would, just because I am doing a video and I'm talking while I'm doing it. So if I were to not talk, I'm certain that it would actually go faster. But so far we're at about 10 minutes, 11 minutes there, and we're almost done. So in order to get this the way that we want it to be, I can take, and I'll just make a duplicate of it so that you can see the difference. But I'll go ahead and make a duplicate copy. And this way, I'll show you, if you shrink it down, your line thickness actually stays that same line thickness that it was before. So even if I make it smaller, my blast lines can stay the same thickness, which is pretty neat. So there's two different ways of doing that. Let me back up here a little bit. Okay. So on this one, it's set to scale the stroke with the object, so that if I go smaller, my thickness will actually get smaller. You've got that option too, if you want to do that or not. I typically wouldn't want that. I would want my stroke thickness to stay the same. So as I move this one down to the same size, you'll see how my stroke thickness stays the same. So there's the two different options. You can do it either way. But I just wanted to show you how that works, that you've got the ability to do that. So I'll just undo and get back to where we were before. Okay, so in order to get this to something that's cuttable, then I've just got a few extra steps. So I'll have to take this and hit a couple keys on my keyboard so that it will weld together. And maybe I'll do this in Wireframe so that you can actually see what's going on. I'll undo that a couple times. Let me hide that so it's faster. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I broke apart all of the inside pieces, and they then separated out. All those inside lines separated out, and then all I have to do is weld those together, so all of those strokes then weld together. And then I will usually just clean it up a little bit. If there's any small little stray objects, I can go ahead and clean that up and get rid of those. So there was 11 little stray objects, so it got rid of those for me. And then I'll get this to really make sure that I like it. I'll come in here and look and see if there's any crazy stuff like this, and if there is, then I'll just simply clean that up. So I've got some smoothing that I can do. I'll just click here and smooth that out. I can make my smooth a little bit larger too. So any of these lines in here, I can just smooth those out and get them to where I want them to be. And I mean, it's a touch screen too, so I could really just smooth this with my finger if I wanted to. Kind of similar to smudging when you're drawing with a pencil. But so I'll just come in here and smooth this out a little bit. Just depends on where I want it to be. I really don't do it with my finger. I use the pen, but just to show you that it's possible. I'll come in and smooth any of these lines that I need to. And when I'm done with that, and I usually hit my fill button here and knock out any of these interior pieces that shouldn't be filled. And there we've got him. He's all ready to go. If we get back to the full screen, we can go back up to Object and say Hide and Show All Objects. And that way we can show what it's going to look like. I can take that off, and that way we can see what it's going to look like there on the stone. The reason that I filled this one is because, like I said, later on, let's say I wanted to put this same thing on an actual die or something, I could grab that and put that over here, and then I could fill that in with a granite color. And that way all of these inside pieces here get frosted, and then you got the black outside piece there. So by having this fillable, you're able to do that. Whereas if I would have left a gap, then it wouldn't have been fillable. So there's my process for custom drawing things using the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro 16, CorelDRAW 2018, MemorialDESIGNER, and yeah, that's pretty much how that goes. This computer over here, I think you can see that, is actually a Surface Book 2, and you can do the same thing on it. So if I had that picture, I could do the same thing here. The cool thing with the Surface Book 2 is it is like a regular laptop, but so you can actually pop the screen off, and that way, so I mean, this thing is tiny. It's a 15-inch screen, but it's incredibly thin. I don't know if you can see how thin and light that is. And then the pen here is it's a magnet, just detachable pen. So I can take this and copy that. Give it a second to load up here. But yeah, I'm just amazed at how small and thin this is. As far as the screen size goes and compares to the Mobile Studio Pro, it's a little bit taller and not quite as wide. But overall, it's you know, roughly the same size. This is a 4K screen, so you've got 3840 pixels or whatever it is wide. This is not quite 4K, but it's almost there. Okay, so I've got this. If I just come up here to paste that down, paste that image, I can resize it, get it to how I want it to be. Once again, I can apply the transparency to it, set my size of my stroke that I want to use, and I didn't even look to see how big this is. 9 by 12. Let's crop that down a little bit. And then we will set, let's do that. So it's got an on-screen keyboard if you need to use a keyboard. Maybe I'll just do 0.09 on this one. Alright, so same thing applies. I can just come in here and start drawing. And it's pressure sensitive as well. So I'm shaking a little bit more because I'm just holding it with my left hand, but you can see. And I'll try not to talk as much on this one. Oops, that was kind of crazy. Maybe nah, it's alright. I'll just go like this. Anyway, So just to show you, I mean, you can do that with a Microsoft Surface or a Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, or there's a host of other devices out there that you can do it on, but these ones are my favorites. So I can actually then put this back into the dock, or back onto its keyboard and mouse there when I'm done. So hopefully that was informative. Just to show you that there are options out there for doing things quicker. And I realize that they're expensive, but you do get your return on your investment by the amount of time that it saves and how long it takes you to do things. So hopefully that's helpful.